Light as a feather, stiff as a board. Light as a feather, stiff as a board. We are the weirdos, mister.
Black as night, erase death from our sight. White as light, mighty hectate make it right. I myself am strange and unusual.
Cast a circle, spark some incense, and grab a cup of tea because it's time for the Cousins Coven podcast. I'm Sharon.
And this is Wendy. Welcome back to the Coven, you guys. I just can't stop laughing all of a sudden, so I apologize.
Right, we were having the giggles right before we started. But I don't know why, because today we're talking about death and reapers. But First, we're going to talk about some updates, some questions, some news. So I really want to get into it. We got to talk about Stonehenge.
Woohoo!
There have been some recent developments of Stonehenge, and I actually just kind of took an expert from an article. That way I can give the facts and not just kind of guesstimate. So archaeologists have found an even bigger prehistoric ring of 16-foot deep, 33-foot wide shafts, just 2 miles basically from Stonehenge itself. There is a new larger circle. They're calling it Holehenge. And it is now the biggest prehistoric site in the UK. So this is a massive discovery. It's really exciting stuff because we thought Stonehenge was it, the shit, and that was it. So to be unveiling more, we're just gonna figure out more about this structure, what it may have been, and what that society was doing. And this was all done by the archaeologists at the University of Bradford in West Yorkshire, England. And they discovered it through the Stonehenge Hidden Landscapes project. And this uses a non-invasive geophysical prospection. These are big words. I'm guessing that's just their way of saying prospect.
Yeah.
It's a remote sensing technology, and it uses these things to get surveys, and they investigate the empty spaces. And there were 20 of these shafts. And they think that there were originally maybe 30 of them to make an actual circle around. And it's 1.2 miles in diameter. And the uniformity of the pattern rules out the possibility that the shafts were naturally occurring. So they're already, they know this is a man-made structure. And then if they dated the area back to 250 BC.
Wow.
So super, super old structure. And I think they're going to find out more and more. Maybe they'll try to figure out the different paths and what the structure was. Was it just a wall protecting Stonehenge, or was it actually lining up with the stars, essentially, is what they're trying to figure out now.
I was wondering, I was like, well, maybe they started building it and then they were like, oh, we're being raided. We have to move. So they moved to the next space. Let's start building again. And then they're like, oh, we're being attacked. Let's move to the next space.
I mean, it is one big circle, so it definitely could have been a wall of protection. And it seems like some people say, well, maybe the stones are also gateways in some areas too, where it's just oh, that was the gateway to this part of town or to this area. And maybe the center was just a gathering point, a meeting place. So it's really, really cool.
Yeah, very. I love it. Thank you so much for updating us on that.
Yeah, apparently they were trying to figure out some sort of tunnel system. And they wanted to have a highway thing cut through to cut off travel time. And now that this has been discovered, they're going to try to put a stop to that because it would have gone through this outer circle.
Right. Oh.
So hopefully they don't build this highway tunnel thing. And
right.
I would think they would stop because this is just if it's the biggest now structure in the UK, I think they would want to preserve that.
Most likely, yeah.
What else do we have on our agenda?
So I have just kind of a small update. So in the spring, remember I did that little fairy garden?
Yeah.
This week it was kind of funny. We had some really nice weather. So I decided to mow the lawn, and then I left my lawnmower out for several days in a row. Just was too lazy to go put it back in the garage. And, when I had brought it in, I didn't notice anything on the ground. Because I have to take it in through kind of the side gate. So I take it from the front of my house, go through the side gate into the back of my house. And on the a few days later, I was like, okay, I'll put this away. It's going to rain. I should put my lawnmower away. So I was, you know, taking it back through the side area, and I noticed that there was something that had grown on the ground, and it was a complete fairy circle of moss with these beautiful little flowers
Oh
growing
my
out of it.
god, that's so cute.
Yeah, it's so awesome. So I was like, oh my gosh. And it's right outside of my office window, which is obviously where I'm recording podcast. So you can see it. So I ended up putting part of the fairy garden back up in that window so that they can see that I
Not
was still
only
thinking
where
of
you do
them.
podcasts, but I know you've done some magic there, some
Yes.
seance work there, like just all
Yeah.
of that kind of energy. And so
Right.
for like to see a little mossy circle perfectly outside your
Hmm.
window, that is a lovely, lovely synchronicity. And I think it sounds like you have some fairy energy in your garden now.
Yes, I'm so excited. And we have like all these new species of flowers growing in my yard that I hadn't seen before.
Mm-hmm.
And we've lived in this house for about 3.5 years. And our yard was junk when we moved in, and we haven't done anything to it. I haven't added anything to it, but offerings to Mother Earth herself. And obviously to the fairies. And so now we have this beautiful lush grass. We've got um, flowers that are just blooming, and our tree gave fruit this year, and it's never done that before.
Oh
It's
my
just interesting.
god. What kind of fruit?
Yeah. These Asian apples. Yeah, they're
Wow.
like really small, and when you cut them open, they're purple inside with these stars.
Oh my god, that is so magical. The
Right?
combination of like our favorite magic color being purple and like this druid
And
gift of the
stars.
pentagram and the star. Yes.
It's so amazing. I was like, what is happening? I'm not going to question it. This is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, even though this is stuff we talk about all the time and believe in, and we believe in the magic of this lifestyle, it's still takes my breath away and really surprises me when you see it like answering you or giving you gifts like
Yeah,
this. I'm super
absolutely.
happy for your garden right now.
Yeah, me too. I'm
Save me an
thankful to the
apple.
earth. Yes. Yes. Let's see what else we have. Oh, I did a reading this week
Hmm.
for a client of mine. I think I've been working with her for a year and a half, maybe. She had someone in her life that was her twin flame, and he passed away before they had a chance to get married, and it was really saddening. But I've been kind of helping her through the process, and I do readings for her and contact with her, her love. And this time when I did the reading, it was, I kid you not, 3.5 hours. Like, I was really deep into the reading, because it wasn't just that. I was actually connecting with the spirit of her loved one who had passed away. And um, I felt like this was the first time I'd tried to do spirit connection since I did Reiki on my third eye, which I talked about a couple weeks ago, I think, on an after show. But it was interesting because this time when I connected with him, I felt his presence. I could hear, see, smell. I mean, I was using all of my senses to be able to get the answers that he was trying to give to me. It was just a really interesting experience. And I felt like it was the first time that I'd been able to use my gifts, my God-given gifts, so to speak, in
And
a
do you want
long
to like
time.
kind of break down when your process of what a reading means, just so people can kind of envision it or know what you mean by that?
Yeah, yeah. So I was just doing tarot card readings. So I did
Hmm.
several. Like, first, I did a reading that an oracle card reading that was specifically for the chakra, to see where she was at. So it gave me a way to connect with her and see where she's at in her space. Because when I do the readings, normally the person isn't in front of me, so I want to make sure that I have a really good connection with them. So I did this reading, and then I did. She had, like, a couple days before we did the actual reading, I had asked her if she had specific questions. So I answered all of the questions with the tarot cards and the oracle cards that I use. It was kind of a conglomerate. And then I decided to sit down and write the questions down that she had for her love, her twin flame. And that's when I did the connection, and I used stones to help me connect. I actually put a stone on my third eye and got into a deep meditative state.
Were you lying
Um,
down, obviously, for that?
No, I was just sitting cross-legged.
Oh,
Um,
did you like hold it up to your forehead, the stone?
yeah,
Okay.
I held this stone up
I
to
love
my
that. Yeah.
third eye, and I just felt this deep connection, not only to the stone, but to the spirit world. So, like, I envisioned kind of a bridge where the spirit could cross to talk to me,
Mm-hmm.
because he has crossed over. Um, so I knew that I needed to make some sort of connection between this world and his. And it's a lot different than speaking with a ghost, so to speak, because some ghosts live on our plane of existence, but he's not on our plane of existence. He's crossed over to something else.
I do
So
apologize if you're able to hear my dog barking or growling right now.
that's okay.
I just want to let listeners know there's not like a demon in the podcast recording. It's just my dog. But that is like a really heavy reading to be called to do, I would
Mm-hmm.
say, and like heavy messages, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like a tragic and romantic thing that you think is only in movies, to have like this love that continues after death. And
Mm-hmm.
does
Mm-hmm.
it seem to bring about peace for your client?
Yes and no. When you lose a loved one, someone that you're this connected to, it kind of transcends loss in a way, because you're losing more than, say, a mom or a dad or a grandparent who's lived a very long life. This is more like you've lost a part of your soul, so to speak, when you lose a twin flame. Um, it's intense, and uh, I I know that she is having a really hard time moving on, and it's like I said, it's been 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years, and so for her, she's finding a hard time. But I don't think you ever get over death, the death of anyone, so to speak. I think you just have to learn to live with it, and depending on who it is that passed away, um, the the living with it may be a lot harder.
Right. Coming to
Mm-hmm.
terms and moving on,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah, trying to find
Yeah.
happiness. Sometimes it feels like it's not right to have happiness when someone passes in your life.
Right. Right. I did come up with this mantra, so to speak. It came to me when I was meditating. I I really hate talking about this twin flame thing because it's really hard for me. I
Mm.
shouldn't say hate, that's kind of a strong word. Um, it's hard for me because I didn't believe in twin flames for a very long time until one day I experienced something that I don't really want to get into, but it did mean something to me. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to find my mantra here. So, anyone who has lost a twin flame, I highly suggest maybe you write this down really quick, because it's a way for you to continue to live your life without your twin flame. Um, but I just wrote this down, and it says, I call upon my twin flame to help me heal my heart, to help me love more freely, even though we are apart. Because you, meaning that you're not together in this life.
Mm-hmm.
Some people come into a life and they never meet their twin flame. Um, and some, maybe that person passed early or passed before you had a chance to meet them.
Sometimes it just doesn't line up. And
Right.
I'm going to try to just break it down in case maybe people don't know. I think twin flame is there's a couple of different names for love connections in life, and that
Mm-hmm.
might be a fun episode we could do sometime.
Yeah, sure.
We'll talk about this in depth. But with twin flames, I feel like it's this idea where there's like this red string of fate, almost tying your two souls together through many lifetimes and reincarnations. You're just like meant to be together, and you lift each other up, and like it's like a really great love, if I'm
Mm-hmm.
explaining that correctly.
You are.
And
Yeah.
so, if maybe in this lifetime they pass unexpectedly, you don't link up, things are not always perfect in our lifetimes. And that's why I think that there's that hope and belief in reincarnation, that you can get it right the second time, third time, fourth time,
Mm-hmm.
fifth time. But so it sounds like this is a mantra to get you through the loss of that, so you can still have value within this lifetime and still learn
Right.
love and learn those lessons.
Right. Because maybe you still have to have a relationship. Maybe like there is somebody else out there for you that could be a great love for you.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe it's not necessarily that twin flame. So, yeah. And you can still love that twin flame, and that twin flame can still talk to you in the spirit realm. Maybe you can even astral project together, that kind of thing.
Wow, I love it. Astral projection dates.
Yeah, exactly. So,
That's
yeah, I
kind
hope we
of
get to
like,
do an episode.
right? I'm so distracted now
Yeah.
thinking about like I need to go figure out the other types. So pin it. We're gonna
Yeah.
do it later, guys.
Yes, exactly. Um, oh, we have a listener question.
Yay.
Yes. So we have listener Liz, and she says, I've always been an empath. And when I was younger, I was told I was just sensitive. And she puts that in quotes. I can sense spirits, feel energy. And for a long time, I didn't realize that I have a bad habit of absorbing other people's feelings. It's exhausting. She asks, do you have a recommendation for a book, program, technique that has helped you? Liz, I'm really excited for this question because I know we did an episode on it, but I feel like I've learned so much even since we did that episode.
Mm-hmm.
And so I
I
do
think that
have
was
some.
Roswell and empaths. Like I think we just
Yes,
had like a really random mix.
right,
So if you haven't
exactly.
heard our tips, just check out the beginning half of the episode.
Right.
Plus today's.
Plus today's. Yeah. So I feel like as an empath, I've struggled my whole life and I'm finally getting a grasp on it. Um, it's really freaking hard and it takes a lot to really get a hold of your empathic abilities, get a hold of your empathic nature.
It's probably a
So
daily thing. It's a
it
daily,
is.
and it's like, it's a practice. It's not just something like, boom, I'm perfect and I have my shields up. It's like, no, you do it every day.
Right. And you're learning every day
Mm-hmm.
and growing every day. So it's a constant thing.
Mm-hmm.
The good news is there are some books out there. There's this woman named Judith Orloff, who is an empath, and she's written a bunch of books like how to be an empath in your everyday life, how to be an empath at work, how to get a hold of your empathic abilities. She's got these great workbooks. She's got a good website. So I'm going to be linking her website down below. She helped me a little bit.
Nice.
Yeah, so she'll teach you techniques and things like that. Um, I can't stress enough, and this is probably why meditation is so big for me, that meditation is key when you're an empath. You need to meditate in your space, meditate to get to know yourself better, meditate to get your abilities on track. There are all these different types of meditations that you can do to help you as an empath.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping one day I will do a meditation for empathic people so that can help you gain control of yourself.
Or you will do it.
Yes, I will be doing it. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
Some other things that you can do are to wear specific stones to help you control your empathic abilities, or charms, or maybe colors of clothing, because each day as a person we wake up and we're a little bit different. Maybe our mood is lethargic, maybe we're angry that day, maybe we're happy that day. We're ever changing, and so you can use these tools that are there for you, just like magic, to help you with your empathic abilities.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of
Mhm.
techniques. I feel like for me personally, the two biggest things that have helped me just is that mind, body, soul connection.
Mhm.
Like being a witch, I learned the techniques of just like grounding and centering, just like
Mhm.
connecting to the earth and cleansing out old stagnant energy, breathing in new energy, and really grounding yourself to feel like you're protected in like this almost egg-shaped circle around your entire body. And that is supposed to act as like a barrier between, getting drained and having that empathic
Mhm.
stuff coming in and out of you. And that is a daily thing that we should be doing.
Exactly.
The other main thing I learned in my life is like being a yogi and stuff like that. Like you're getting the ultimate mind, body, soul connection when you do like an hour of yoga a day, and you're actually like connecting within your body what is sore, why does my hip feel tight today? Why does this hurt? Like, and you can really address all that stuff that maybe you absorb that empathic stuff and then
Mm-hmm.
release it. And then you're like really checking in every single day. And that was when I was like the strongest, when I had like a regular yoga studio practice. I'm trying to
Mm-hmm.
find a balance in that again in my own life. And I do feel like that's why I say it's a practice, because it's like you have to keep going at it every day.
Right. And life is so ebb and flow. Everything
Mm-hmm.
about it is ebb and flow. So it's like, I get that. Like you're saying, I was constantly doing it and now I'm not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That's just part of it.
right.
Yeah.
And like when you were telling me you were going to talk about helping people block from, absorbing everything they feel around them. In my own personal life, I'm kind of struggling with that, because now that I'm around my family again, having moved back to my home state recently, I'm around my mom all the time, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But I do notice sometimes when I'm around her, I will feel pain in my body that wasn't there 5 seconds ago. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, does your
Mm-hmm.
knee hurt? And she's like, yeah, my knee hurts. I'm like, hey, does your butt hurt? And she's like, yeah, my butt hurts. I'm just like, I know what hurts. And so like that is a worries me a little bit, because it's like, if it's just so easy for me to absorb physical
Mm-hmm.
pain, am I also absorbing emotional pain? And
Mm-hmm.
are these nightmares I'm having mine? What is going on, and where does the line stop, and how can I control that barrier? And so
Right.
it's really difficult when you're doing it with maybe your significant other, or what if it's your kids? You know what I mean? Like there's so many people you're so linked to ancestrally, that I am struggling with that empathic nature.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I get that because I struggle with that kind of stuff all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to tell if it's yours or somebody else's, but there are quite a few things you can do. So I first of all have to say, make sure that you take your control back. Do not let the abilities that you have control you, you control them. So get to know what they are, because some empaths, they don't feel everything. um, I feel like each empathic thing is completely different because everybody has their own path. So you need to find out what those abilities are that you have and get to know them and control them. And that's really freaking hard to do. But I think getting a sense of your aura and how your aura works and responds to other people's auras really helps. I know that really helped me. So I started testing it in public. I would be at the bus stop and close my aura off and feel it close off, because I stopped feeling all the people around me. And then I would open it up just to one specific person, and so that I could feel their energy,
What is
and
your
so on and
technique
so
for
forth.
that process of the open and closing of the aura?
I just did it with intention. So
Okay.
I just said, I control you and
It
you're a part
sounds
of
like
me.
so
I know.
Sith Lord.
Right, right. I control you. But it's basically, you have to know that it's a part of you. And just like your skin, you wouldn't let your skin touch something if you didn't want it to. Maybe you'd accidentally bump into a wall, but you don't intentionally bump into a wall. So it's kind of like getting your bearings around you. And so ways to do that obviously are meditation, getting in touch with your feelings, understanding how energy works and your energy fields, other people's energy fields, and the auras. Um, and you have to kind of know where the energy is coming by feeling that. So stop in your space, stop in the moment, even if it's just for a second, because if you can take stock into that, the time doesn't really exist. You can stop in that moment and get a lot of things done in just breathing for a minute. So breathe, realize what's going on around you, feel everything, see everything just for that moment, and breathe into it and lean into it and figure out how to stop it with your own mind. Everybody's techniques are going to be a little bit different.
Right. I think maybe
um
it starts with that acknowledgement of noticing something might have been off. And then
mhm
when you kind of realize, hey, I'm this. And if you
mhm
could realize it's not you, you can start the process of like breathing it
mhm
out,
exactly.
letting it dissolve into the earth. So
Right.
being conscious of what you're feeling, checking
mhm
in with yourself throughout the day.
Right. And this is another thing that I've learned as an empath. If you feel that you are off, like something is off in your space for just a moment, it may be because somebody else from somewhere else in the world is trying to get in contact with you. And so they've briefly jumped into your space for a moment.
Okay, that's a
And
hard one to
it is, but it's happened to me.
comprehend.
It's happened to me recently. So I was talking with another empath and he just blipped in really quick. And I was like, whoa, something feels weird. Like I could feel his energy. And then like we were just texting back and forth. And I felt him pop in. He didn't have quite control over whether he could blip in or not. So you have to control yourself from also blipping into somebody else's space.
Oh God.
I know, right? It's a lot. It's a lot. I think you also have to understand that you are not responsible to absorb the feelings of someone else unless you want to. If you do choose to absorb those feelings, like as far as like almost an energy absorbing, you need to release them to something higher than you so that they can take care of it. You are not responsible. So I've started doing this thing where, and I think Reiki helped me with this, is that if I feel myself absorbing somebody's energy, like for instance, your mom, you were absorbing her pain, you need to release that. The second that you feel it and you've acknowledged it, release it to something higher than you. You imagine what it is to you that you want to release it to. I release mine to I say to the greater energies of the universe that can take it and recycle it into positive energy. So I'm like, please take this negativeness and turn it into something else.
Okay, that is the perfect information that I needed to hear. So I'm assuming that I'm not alone in this.
Right, you're
so
not.
yeah, like those listeners and the question, of course, but like that is so good to know, because what do you do when your ass starts to hurt around your mom? You just give it to the greater powers of the universe that be.
Right.
I love it.
Yes, because you're not responsible for that. I mean, you can help them. That's great that you can help them, but it's not yours to take on. It's not your burden. But and you don't want to fully absorb it and take it on the road down with you. You don't want to take it to work with you. You don't want to take it in every part of your life with you.
Right.
So just realize that these things are temporary and you can release them.
Nice. That is super empowering. Thank you.
You're welcome. So that's just kind of my tips. You really get to know yourself, do that meditation, do a lot of journal writing. Everybody's path is their own. So if you're willing to grow, your empathic abilities can grow and change with you.
Well said.
Yeah.
So
Yay.
We have about maybe one more update to go into, and then we'll get into our main topic. I know we've got a long intro here, but bear with us.
Yeah. So we went to the graveyard yesterday.
We saw each other for the first time in all of this social distancing, and felt comfortable enough to share air.
Yeah.
And we walked the graveyards. Nice. It was very nice. I think that's really the most I've been outside in months.
Me too. It was really nice to get out of the house, to go to two of my favorite haunts, so to speak.
Yes. We hit up an old historical graveyard here in town, as well as a graveyard where we have some ancestors and family members. And so that was really great. And for me and you, we both had affirmations of intuition of the paranormal degree, I would say, yesterday. So for me, it was before we left. I knew we were going to the site of where my grandfather's ashes are in his little tomb. And so I was like, oh, I need to bring him a flower. If my memory serves me correctly, he has like a flower holder. And so I just walked outside to the backyard, and I just knew it had to be yellow. And then I saw a yellow rose, and I immediately stopped, turned back around, and went and got that yellow rose. And I was like, this is it. I know this is it. I just have to have this yellow flower. And basically, after I get back from the excursion and my mom's asking me, "Oh, you visited Grandpa?" And I was like, "Yeah, I brought him a flower." And she's like, "Oh, good." And then I was like, "Yeah, yellow rose." And she's like, "Oh, wonderful." She's like, "Oh, thank you." I bring him like a yellow rose every year. He loved the song. I think Yellow Rose of Texas. He sang it all the time. And in fact, that yellow rose bush he gave me because he was not able to ever get the roses to bloom, but me being like the rose lady, I was able to get that growing for him. So it was just like this massive confirmation that that intuition that told me A, it had to be yellow, and B, it's this yellow rose, was 100% correct.
That's so awesome.
I
I love it
know.
so
I was
much.
just like jaw dropped, like, yes, I love that, because most of the time, 95% of the time, it's just me being like, this is what I think is right, and I'm doing it. I don't normally get that much of a confirmation.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So that was super, super, super exciting for me.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I love that so
And like,
much.
I feel like your intuition moment was trying to locate a tombstone of one of our
Yes.
ancestors.
Yes. So our uncle. It's funny because every time we go to the grave, I go to the graveyard to see him. I never remember where his grave is. I just know kind of the general area. So we were looking it up. You know, most cemeteries, they tell you um, where someone is located in the lot. And we were trying so hard to find him. And I just kind of stood in one spot and breathed for a minute. And then I just felt him guide me to his tombstone. And
You became your
it
own
was
dowsing
awesome.
rod.
Yes, exactly. I just was silent for a moment. And it's in those moments of silence where I can really connect as an empath to spirits if I want to.
I really enjoyed that. Like for me, it's usually when I'm not thinking about trying hard and I can't try. So like I feel like
Hmm.
I was trying in that moment to let it happen, and because I'm trying to force it, it's not going to lead me there.
Right,
Like when I
right.
just I'm like, I know I have to get a flower, I walk outside, boom boom boom, and it just happens, boom boom boom. It has
Hmm.
to like just come through me like a lightning bolt. But like I can't be frantic and be like, show me where my lost cat is, show me where my lost cat is. Like it's never worked for me like that.
Right,
It's just
right.
like you have to just go with the flow and just
Hmm.
do it, and then and not try to do it. So that's how it's been for me anyway.
Right.
As far
And it's funny because it's opposite for me. I have to
as
be totally zen for a minute,
mm-hmm.
like just
Oh yeah,
shut everything else out.
yeah. I cannot demand it. But yeah, graveyards are really peaceful places to go. I think it's still good for social distancing because there's not that many people out there.
Right.
And it can be really gratifying to go see people in your family line and just say hi.
Exactly. And we even, at one of the historical graveyards, we even found this amazing tree. Do you remember the tree? And it had like
Oh
oak
yeah.
around it. It
And
was
it had like almost
huge.
runes in the bark, I felt like. It was really cool.
Yeah.
Just these natural symbols, like this big X, and I feel like you saw
Hmm.
like a heart.
Right. Yeah. I was like, oh my gosh, an X and a heart. It was just so cool. And like I kept feeling gravitated toward that area and didn't know why until I saw the tree and I saw the X and I was like, this is it.
X marks the spot. And you know that
That's
that
right.
tree had seen the beginning of this graveyard and like all this
Hmm.
history. And so that's where it's just like, oh, you're the secret keeper of this place. You know what's up, the spirit of this
Right.
tree.
Right. That's
So
great.
yeah.
It's a nice trip.
A nice trip. Good to see each other.
Yes.
I think it is time for us to get into kind of our main topic today.
Oh, yes. Are you ready for this?
I am. I'm really excited. So, like I said earlier, we're talking about death, the personification of death, and reapers. And we're going to kick
Hmm.
things off with the Grim Reaper. This is something
Yeah.
I've really wanted to talk about ever since we started doing our series on tarot cards. And we got to the death card, and I was just like really captivated by that image of death riding his pale horse.
Hmm.
Okay, so the Angel of Death, aka the Grim Reaper, the origins can actually be traced to Europe during the 14th century, the idea of this Grim Reaper image. And this is when Europe was dealing with what was then the world's worst pandemic, the Black Death. And at that time, it was estimated that 1/3 of Europe's entire population died as a result of the Black Death. And over the course of the 14th century, there were really a ton of small outbreaks going on and all these flare-ups everywhere. And there was just this constant fear of death. Death was lingering the streets, as they say, and it just really felt like it was a physical thing walking amongst them. And so the personification of death became what we know today as this grim reaper, a skeletal figure with a hood and holding a scythe. And so if you just break down the imagery there, if you look at the skeleton, that's obviously a symbol of death, and that represents the human body after it has decayed. So it's really a natural thing. I've noticed that can be a really polarizing symbol. Some people really fear skeletons and they really fear any kind of skeletal artwork, like it's just too dark or demonic. And then some people love it and incorporate it in their art. Like if you look at the catacombs of Paris and they're actually using skulls everywhere. I'm kind of on the side of loving skulls, always have loved skulls and crossbones. For me, it kind of started with the Jolly Roger flag as a kid. I've just love skulls. I have a skull tattoo. I have skull shirts. I want like everything skull. I'm down. And then if you look at the robe that he's wearing, this is supposed to be reminiscent of the religious figures who would wear those type of robes during funerary services. And so during like the Black Death and the plague and everything, not all of the plague victims ever really got those type of services. Priests would kind of refuse because they were afraid that the dead body would be contagious. So that's kind of a
Which
way.
is not true, but yes.
Yeah. So a lot of just be like dead bodies kind of piling up and not any ceremony going into it. And if you look at the tool he uses is the scythe. Which is taken from the agricultural practices of the time. So the Grimm is wielding this as a tool of a harvester of souls. And the Grim Reaper's special powers, or the job that they have, is that they have the ability to separate souls from the body. And most stories claim that the mere presence of the Grimm can actually just start to draw the soul out of the body itself, like it's just being in his vicinity. Others say it could just be based on his decision. So like if he just lifts one bony finger, the Reaper can break your bonds to the living world. And after it's collected your soul, it's going to serve as a guide who helps you find your way into the next realm. Now, if you look at different stories, there are times where like the hero has managed to trick or convince the Grim Reaper not to take their souls. And in some cases, the Grim Reaper was even giving someone a talisman that made them immortal. So I just find that to be pretty badass.
That's cool.
Right? I don't know if that's just like when you have to make a deal with the devil, like what is that song when they had to like play some sort of fiddle? I don't know. I don't know if that's related to the Grim Reaper. I think that's the devil. I think that's the devil went down to Georgia. So that is not, that is not right. Now let's say if we go to biblical texts, there's also kind of a beginning origin of the Grimm in the book of Revelation. In the last book of the Bible, the New Testament, there's the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. The 4 of them, they ride a white horse, red, black, and then there's the pale horse. What's the difference between a white and a pale horse? I do not know. But the 4th rider is considered death and is often, shown as a skeletal figure in the pale cloak. So they believe that this is another tie to the Grim Reaper and why that you like hear him riding the pale horse of death. There's also this debate like whether Death himself is male or female or potentially like non-binary. There are legends where it's actually female depending on where you're at. Like in Poland, Death is female. The female, I think it's Samaric is the word for death, and it's actually just depicted as an old skeletal woman that looks a lot like the Grim Reaper, but she's wearing a white robe. So I kind of thought that was a cool image too, like to have a white robe. Yeah, so the Grim Reaper, I don't know if I would look at him as an evil figure. I feel like he's just doing his job. And I don't think I found anything on like how he chooses the people, if someone else is telling him who to go for, or does he just wait for people to die? No, I guess he
has a list.
Yeah. So I don't really, right. He's like Santa Claus of death, but I don't really know how that all ties in. I think it kind of could also, again, depend on what you're looking at, what group, because I know with the Greeks, they have like their little gods of death and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, what kind of death harbinger did you decide to look at today?
So I chose Ankou from Celtic mythology. And I came up with this one. It was kind of hard because when I first started looking at Ankou, everything that came up was video game related. I
Okay.
was so I was like, okay, let me do Ankou mythology. So I finally found it. And this one, he's not really a reaper. He's considered to be the king of the dead. They think that potentially that it was a riot that derived from the stories of the Morrigan, which is the death crone,
Mm.
who was also known as Anu. And Anu came from the stories of Anubis, which we kind of have talked about Anubis before. Um, but Ankou is a watcher of the graveyard, and the servant of death can also be male or female, and they determined that because the Morrigan was female, the most likely Ankou was female, and changed into male um, during the times of Catholicism kind of ramping up in Europe, um, to show the male superiority. And that, let's see what else. Ankou appears to be a skeleton with long white hair and a black cloak and a wide brimmed hat, holds a sigh, um,
I have to
and
say the look is doing it for me. Like
right.
I Google imaged it. It's Ankou for inquiring minds.
Hmm.
It's kind of like this hot guy. Like I know maybe again. I like skeletons, but I like it. I like
Yeah, cool looking.
yes.
Some stories say that he's a dark shadow figure. Basically, he's the keeper of souls that decide to stay in the graveyard. So he doesn't actually usher them on to
Mm.
another place, so to speak. He just kind of takes them where they want to go. So some say, I want to stay in the graveyard, and he makes sure that they stay in the graveyard and that they don't leave that space. Some say that they want to go on to the next place, and he drops them off at the river Styx or whatever.
He's like a Uber for
Um,
the dead.
yeah, exactly. So they say that he enters the house, picks up the soul, and he has two helpers that help him do this. And then, like I said, he takes it where it needs to go. In some stories, it's said that if you hear the wheels of a wooden cart on New Year's Eve, to hide in your homes, or Ankou will take your soul.
Okay.
But this story didn't really come into play until later in mythology of Ankou, so like maybe in the 1500s, because the belief is that it was meant to keep you inside your home so that you wouldn't practice the end of year pagan rituals.
Oh,
Right? I
God.
knew that would make you mad, but I had to tell you.
Shaking my fist at the wall, just keeping the pagans down all the way.
Right. But the idea of the cart later became known as a hearse or an ambulance.
Ah,
Yeah, so very interesting. They did say the cart was typically black.
very badass. This is really, really cool. My imagination's teeming. I love the imagery that I'm seeing in the artworks on Google.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I found out about Ankou. I liked the adaptation of it coming from the story of Anubis, which
Hmm.
was the guy who prepped all of the bodies of the dead but didn't actually take them to the other side.
Right? They're just like maybe all connected. They're
I
all
think it's all one and the
associates.
yeah,
These are just
all one and the same.
associates.
Hmm.
So I covered Shinigami, which is
Yeah.
a Japanese death god and or death spirit, and it's a part of the Shinto religious lore. And the word Shinigami is made from two other Japanese words, so it's shi and kame, and these literally mean death and God. So kami is the Japanese term for spirits and other kinds of spiritual natural forces and little beings that exist in nature. Kame are spirits typically associated with natural phenomenon that exists in the everyday world. So basically, mountains, rivers, trees, these may all have like kame associated or housed within them, like a little river spirit, a forest spirit. So kami can be beneficial to human that live near the existing phenomenon. Like maybe if you live on a nearby village next to this mountain, And there's like a benevolent Hape Kame living in the mountain. This can help farmers by providing water for the crops during the summer and the spring. So just like, respecting nature and nature giving you the gifts and the bounties and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, nature can do the opposite. It can be vicious, it can be angry and destructive. So there can be kind of a negative kame as well. So it's kind of wise to show them respect. So there's also kame of the sky and kame of luck. And of course, there's a kame of death. So this is the Shinigami, the kame of death. The appearance of the kame, I found two conflicting versions. So in one, it's saying that it can be difficult to nail down because these death spirits are invisible to everyone except the rare few who have some sort of connection to death or who are close to dying themselves. On top of this, it can seem that even when the Shinigami are seen, they never have the same look or shape again. So you wouldn't really recognize one if you saw it again. Now, other information that I saw says that they look like humans, but they have gray, corpse-like skin, sunken in and horrifying features, and kind of zombie-like. So, kind of, I don't know, different conflicting versions. But in artwork, I normally see it with the gray, corpse-like, creepy skin. Now, as far as how their powers work, some say that the Shinigami are spirits of possession, or tsukemono, which haunt people and alter their behavior. Their victims become obsessed with death and are filled with a desire to kill themselves. They obsess.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it gets dark. This is Japanese legend, so it's going to have some dark suicide, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know why or where it stems from. I haven't looked into this a lot myself, but I have just noticed there's so much suicide in the Japanese culture, and it's very tragic and sad. So trigger warning. But these Shinigami, they basically tell the person to obsess over death and every bad thing that they might have ever done, and just kind of fueling their desire to lead to commit to suicide. And apparently they're really fond of possessing wicked people who they think deserve this. So apparently if you are plagued by the Shinigami, you're doomed to have an unnatural and violent death. And local areas could have some different superstitions regarding the Shinigami and how to deal with them. So, for example, in Kumamoto Prefecture, it is believed that anyone attending an overnight vigil with a recently deceased body will be followed home by a Shinigami. So, in order to shake him, when you get home, you have to have a cup of tea or a bowl of rice and lie down to sleep, or else the Shinigami will possess you. Now, in legends, these death spirits work in pairs and appear when it is a person's preordained time to die, at which point they invite him or her over the threshold between life and death. So sometimes it sounds like it's super violent, sometimes that just sounds like a sweet invitation. So, I don't know which legend is true in which area. There's a traditional tale that I kind of found. This is like a short, condensed tale about a man who was about to commit suicide, but he comes face to face with a Shinigami who reveals himself, and the death spirit tells the man that it's not his time to die because lives are measured as candles that burn down. And since his has not burned down yet, he should live on. So the Shinigami tells him a secret that can help him make money. He reveals to the man magic words that will send a death spirit away. So the guy takes this and pretends to be a doctor, and he'll visit the deathbeds of these patients, and he'll use the magic words to banish the death spirits and saving lives and making money. However, he can only do this if the death spirit is sitting at the foot of the bed. If it sits at the head, it means this person's candle has burned down and they must die. So the little trick allows the man to become extremely rich, but eventually it all goes wrong when one day the Shinigami is sitting at the head of the bed, and the family of the dying patients, they offer this fake doctor an obscene amount of money to save the man's life. So he decides, you know what, I'm going to try to trick the death spirit and get this giant, large lump sum. And I'm going to turn the bed around so that the head of the bed is at the foot of the bed. And so when he tries to banish the Shinigami, however, he instead burns up the rest of his own candle and dies.
Oh no.
So you really can't trick the Shinigami. If it's someone's time to die, it's someone's time to die.
He tried to use reverse feng shui.
Yeah, exactly. What if I put you at the foot? Haha! He had a pretty cool gig though. It sounds like that imagery of just like the Shinigami at the bed and like no one else can see it but you, and just like lurking in the shadows staring silently, like that's just so creepy.
Right. Interesting. And he was in a video game too, right?
Probably in video games, but this was one that was coming up in a lot of anime. So when I remember I was first looking it up, I was like, wait, is this a fake thing that's just only in Death Note? Like I had to actually research to find out. No, Death Note is just, talking about stuff from folklore. Yes.
Very cool.
And when I was reading about Kame, that was just more stuff that was like really opening my eyes to the world of anime, which I was kind of grew up in, but I don't always know about Japanese culture. Like anime is my intro to the culture, so I don't always know what everything means. But like for anyone who's ever seen like Hayao Miyazaki's movies like Spirited Away and Princess Mononoke, those are like entry level anime for Americans. You'll see Kame in like all of his movies, and now I realize that he's just basically taking legends of the Japanese culture and putting in his movies. I just thought he was just like so imaginative and coming up with all these forest spirits and stuff. But there's just so many examples of Kame and forest spirits in his movies. So I just think that's really beautiful. The idea of Kame.
Very much so. I love it.
What was your next one that you have for us?
So I have the Lady of the Dead, who is also known as Santa Muerte, which kind of translate to the Saint of the Dead. Sometimes they call her Lady of the Holy Death, and also La Santisima. So the thing is, I came up with all these things about who she was, but she actually originated from something a little bit older. So I wanted to talk about the actual origin story. So originally she was known as Mictacus Cihuatl. Sorry about that pronunciation there. But that she was the queen of the underworld and the afterlife, where she ruled with her husband Mictlan Tecuatli. And she was said to watch over the bones of the dead, as well as ancient funeral rites and parties. And legends say that she was sacrificed as a human baby that turned into a goddess upon death, or that maybe she was sacrificed as a baby and she worked in her death afterlife to marry the king, who then she gained this kind of queen afterlife status. Apparently, Lady of the Dead, the Santa Muerte, though, she was denounced by the Catholic Church and the Mexican government because they believe that it is part of satanic worship, and that her appearance wise, she's seen as a skeletal female figure. She wears a long, colorful robe, and she holds a sai, which represents the cutting of the negative energies or the cutting of the cord of life on earth. And that she holds a globe in her other hand, which represents her rule over the earth and the rule of kind of like being able to reap the souls from everywhere. And it's kind of believed that she works directly for God as a reaper of the human life cycle. So in some works of art, instead of holding a sai or a globe, she's holding scales, which represents the good and evil deeds that you may have done on earth to see if you were even worthy enough to go to heaven. Or maybe she's holding an hourglass, which is kind of taking on the meaning of life is short here on earth. And then when we flip it over, we get to have another start of our afterlife process. Sometimes she's got an owl on her shoulder, and this represents that she can fly through the darkness of night with her wisdom, and that she is a messenger of death. Or maybe she's got an oil lamp in her hand in some of the photos, and that represents that she has the light to show people the way to the afterlife. In a lot of modern day stories, she's associated with healing elements, protecting people and their money, and the path of life after death. she's celebrated a lot in Dia de los Muertos celebrations from October 31st to November 2nd. That's why a lot of people paint their face like with that sugar skull look. They're basing it off of her.
Mm-hmm.
And also that they actually used to celebrate her every single month to kind of celebrate the people who have passed on until July 2016. There were some things that happened that it's kind of unfortunate, but in the Mexican culture related to her, there's a lot of drug lords, sex trafficking, tales of humans kind of tarnishing Santa Muerte's story
Oh.
and trying to use the goddess to their advantage. I don't want to go too much in depth because it was pretty violent, some of the things that I heard, but some people were known to like kill people in her name. So drug lords
Okay.
would come in,
So she's a little
murder someone.
controversial now.
Right, right. And so back in 2016, somebody was murdered in front of one of her shrines. And so they can no longer worship her kind of in public
What?
every month. Yeah.
Okay.
Because of this. Yeah.
I have a lot to say as far as her imagery and how powerful and fucking beautiful she is. Another
Yes.
one I'm Googling, because obviously I just told you guys how much I love skulls. So this is combining skulls with ultimate femininity. Sugar skulls
Mm-hmm.
are beautiful. The amount of detail that
Yes.
artists put into them are breathtaking. And to just see like roses next to the skull, it's just like, oh, the yin and the yang of it. I
Mm-hmm.
drool over it. And so then
Mm-hmm.
seeing this lady of death, very feminine, there's a picture I'm seeing with her. She's holding a scythe that's covered in roses. She has an owl on her shoulder. I was thinking to myself, damn, why wasn't she in Coco? Like, she would have been a badass character to be in
Right.
Coco. And then you're telling me there's actually a really darkness, so maybe they were just too afraid to put that in Disney movie.
Right.
But I
Yeah.
am in love with her imagery, and it's
She's
beautiful.
beautiful.
Mhm.
Yeah, she's very beautiful. And actually the her origin story is beautiful too, coming from the queen of the underworld. That whole thing I really loved. But yeah, now she's just this tarnished figure. Um, uh,
Hopefully not for long and not forever, and her true
right.
followers will probably always be with her. Obviously, I'm an outsider talking about this, looking in,
Sure.
but I'm assuming that, like with most pagan gods, she's got stigmas, and it's
Mm-hmm.
not true.
Mm-hmm.
That's my assumption.
But they worship her kind of like a god. So a lot of
Mhm.
people will light candles with a specific color with something specific in mind. I didn't write down, I should have written it down, but each color of candle that they used was almost like magic. So she gifts them things. So they burn the candle to her, and then in turn, she gives them something.
Mhm. So,
Hmm.
quid
Yeah,
pro quo there.
right.
She
Exactly.
might be the type of deity that you could work with that doesn't have that moral code. Maybe she does a little bit of this, a little bit of that, you know?
Hmm. Hmm. And
This is
then
fascinating.
right. And then the fact that the Catholic Church and the Mexican government think that she's part of this satanic underworld just tarnishes her when she's really not even coming from that. You know, she's not even coming from that part of
But she's a saint
life
at the
or
same
death.
time. Santa
Hmm.
Muerte.
Yeah, but they don't recognize her as a full on saint. The Catholic Church won't recognize her as a saint, but people have given her the name Santa Muerte.
Right. That's really, really beautiful. And
Hmm.
obviously,
She's
I don't know the
gorgeous,
whole
right?
picture, but
Hmm.
I'm kind of taken away by it. So these death figures to me, I like. I'm drawn to the skull imagery. What about you?
Oh yeah. I know that I used to have one of those little calf skulls when I was younger. You know those ones that you can get in like Arizona and New Mexico. They're like a little head of an animal with the horns.
Was it an actual skull? Is what you're talking about?
No, this was made out of plaster.
Okay,
But
like a little plaster replica.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I used to love the southwestern skull kind of look, but as far as an actual skull and crossbones, I've never been drawn to it. However, I've always been drawn to the old Reaper look with that long black robe and the sai. I've
Mm-hmm.
always loved that with the long white hair. That's why I chose Ankou because that's where I go. The skeleton, the long white hair, the big black hat. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's something about him I like. I'm just like, oh, he's wise. Oh, he knows
Mm-hmm.
things. He's seen some
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Take me on a chariot ride. Like, what a good date that would be, just to like ride around
Right.
his little carriage.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm wondering. I gotta look more into this hierarchy of these death gods or whatever we're labeling them as, because I just want to know really who's in charge and where are they ushering them to. There's just so much mystery that I want to shine
Right.
a light on, because each culture's got its own idea of the afterlife, and I think that would be another thing to examine and see the
Mm-hmm.
similarities there, and where does it all stem from, the history of the afterlife.
I promise when I die that I'll send you messages back about how it went.
I bet there's some sort of code though where like you cannot translate. Like it's
Maybe.
just gonna be gibberish.
Yeah.
Uh,
So funny, but there's this TV show called Dead Like Me on Amazon Prime, and I started watching this before we started.
that's like an old show.
Yeah, like from the 2000s. Well,
Mhm.
I'd never seen it and it had always been on my list, and I finally had time to watch it. And I'm
Yeah.
not finished with it, but it's funny because this girl dies and she becomes a reaper, and there's many reapers that go around and reap these souls. Um, there's an episode that I watched last night that really made me think, but apparently the reapers, not categorize, but they catalog everybody who dies, so they keep a catalog of who dies and what your last thought is. And
Mm.
I was like, what would your last thought be?
My thought is it would be good, honestly. There was one time I thought I was going to die, and I told the person next to me, I love you, because that's like, well, if I'm going to die, that's all that matters right now is love, baby.
Mhm.
So
I
I feel like I would be contentment, love. Like it would just be like, this is happening. Here we go.
That's so cool. I love
I'm
that.
afraid of the pain, and I would hope it would be
Mm,
quick, but
mhm,
hopefully your
mhm.
body just goes into shock.
Right, right, and you can't feel it.
Yeah.
I think my views have changed. So I think now my thought would be like, fuck yeah, I'm finally going home. But
I'm so
I'm
tired.
so tired. I'm just ready to go. But I thought it was really interesting and it's such a cute little show.
Right, because
So,
that is kind of like, well, here's one take on how the hierarchy of death works. So yeah, that
right.
show.
Hmm.
What are our thoughts on death, and like what are your personal views, like when you were a kid or maybe now, who did you imagine would take you to the other side, if anything?
I thought when I was younger that when I died, Jesus would take me to the other
Oh,
side.
Jesus himself? Oh
Yeah.
golly, coming from me?
Yeah. He would just come to me and he would take me where I needed to go.
And I'm
Um,
assuming it was like handsome white Jesus with the sandals and the toga.
with really long hair. He didn't have white skin. I always pictured him like darker, not black, but like
Middle
maybe
Eastern?
Italian. Yeah, Middle Eastern. So I would
Ooh,
always
you went
picture him Middle
accurate.
Eastern.
I like
Uh,
it.
so I was like, he's got some great skin.
Mm, mulatto.
um, yeah. Yeah. So I always pictured him darker, but yeah, with really long hair, usually black hair. Um, in sandals and a white robe.
Yeah, sandals. It was always sandals, like Birkenstocks.
Yeah, and he just comes to me. But now I think I imagine somebody else, like somebody that maybe who has passed on before me. Now I like to think maybe my best friend would be there waiting for me to take me to the other side so we could have some jokes and some laughs.
Mm,
And so I always think that maybe she would come for me.
right. That is like very
Mhm.
comforting.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like my interpretations are very similar because we both grew up in the Christian lens.
Right.
And so for me, I think it was probably just like the idea of angels, just
Oh
generic
yeah.
angels ushering you to like the literal pearly gates situation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and now it's the exact same thing where it's like, actually, I just envision ancestors on the other side, and more importantly, not more importantly, that was the wrong choice of words, but more excitedly, perhaps, are my pets, like my
Oh
babies.
yeah.
Like I really
Oh
want to
yeah.
see my golden retriever just like run towards me and be like, I'm here. And guess what? I've
Yeah.
been taking care of all your other doggos. Like that is what
Yes.
I find to be extremely comforting. Is to hug a golden retriever when I die.
Right. You're like, Hondo, I've
Yes.
missed you.
Hondo. Yes. That is my boo that I'm hoping ushers me with a beautiful golden retriever.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have a necessarily like physical death figure that I envision, but any of these that we talked about today, if I saw them, I think I'd be like down to ride the cart, ride the horse, go hand in
Mhm.
hand.
Mhm.
Hopefully the Grim Reaper doesn't actually like take your head with the scythe. I'm hoping that's like symbolism.
Oh, no, I think that it'll be like in Santa Muerte, that the way that they explained it was that it cuts your cord to life on earth, like the silver cord that
Mm.
links your consciousness to your body,
Mm.
that it would cut that cord and then your consciousness would be released.
Mm. Okay, so hopefully that's not painful, but
No, I
again,
don't think so. Yeah.
okay. Lady of Death, I'm assuming would be like a welcome sight, but
I'm gonna
not the
stick with
Shinigami. I don't know. I don't think I want the
no.
Shinigami. I don't want
It's
to
too
have.
scary.
No, no, no,
He's
no.
got red eyes.
Yeah,
I
gray
might get
skin
scared.
makes me want to
Mhm.
kill myself. Just fuck off.
Yeah, yeah. So, what do you think about what do you think is on the other side? Let's talk about that.
I am one of the New Age folk who just use the umbrella term source.
Mm-hmm.
So I, in my mind, and when I meditate on it, and when I try to link to that in my magic, I can only comprehend like love and light. It's very basic.
Right.
I'm not
Mm-hmm.
trying to like fill in some sort of metropolis in the sky of what that really could be like. But I just kind of think of you go to this place where you have the ability to maybe reincarnate, maybe the ability to pop into other lives, maybe the ability to be a ghost and check in on your family.
Mm-hmm.
There's just so much I couldn't even guess what's there, to be
Right.
honest. But I think that you can see your ancestors. Um, and I'm hoping that it's just like peace, relaxation, that your body doesn't have weight, that it's like a floating feeling, and that you don't have like the worldly needs of bodily functions.
Right.
That's about as much as I'm willing to say feels right. What about
Mm-hmm.
you?
Well, since we're just going to be consciousness and energy,
Mm-hmm.
I think my view has kind of changed throughout the years, and recently I found out that there's kind of this black hole at the center of the universe. So I think that maybe my consciousness would fly through space, just kind of enjoying itself, looking around, and then maybe go into that black hole. And what's on the other side, I don't really know.
That's scary, a black hole.
No, I don't think of a black hole as scary. It's just another energy source. It's like a way to travel to another dimension. So I don't find it scary.
So you
Um,
can't see beyond the portal. That's like your pearly gate is a black hole.
is a black hole. I can't.
Okay.
I know that sounds weird, but
I
that's
like that
kind of
it's different, to be honest. So the
yeah,
fact that you're having a different vision, and when I hear this coming from you, to me it sounds like your alien connection that I link you to, where you're just like very cosmic, and
right.
like to you, it's a cosmic thing of a
Hmm.
sciency thing of a black hole. I like that.
Yeah. And I think the afterlife is just on a different plane of existence. So I think that it's just another plane of existence in our like another dimension. I
I
think
have heard that like there is basically a ghost world, but it's like on our plane, but it, like you said,
right.
or not on our plane. It's a different plane, but like on Earth, right?
Yeah, very similar. They're like rubbing up against each other. And those are
Right.
the people I think haven't actually moved on to something else. They're still hanging on here. Maybe they're waiting for some other loved ones to come to them, or maybe they have unfinished business.
That's my questions about ghosts in general. Like, I just want to be able to be a ghost because that sounds cool. And I want to
Hmm.
like keep track of nieces and nephews and things, but I also want to be
Sure.
doing a lot of like as much high level advanced shit as I can be doing on the other side. Like in my mind, I want to be Doctor Stranging it, like doing some
Hmm.
bullshit up there.
Right.
Maybe
And I
that's
think
my ego, but
right. I think it depends on, I mean, your view may change at the point of death
of course,
because,
I'll laugh at what I thought it was versus what it
right.
is.
Right. I think that it depends on what you achieve here, how enlightened you
Mhm.
become when you're
Yeah,
here.
I have
And
ambitions, okay?
right, exactly. So maybe you're going to achieve so much in this life that maybe you won't feel the need to stay behind because you know that you've maybe given everybody behind, or that you're leaving behind the wisdom.
Yeah, like I
That,
feel like, you read about how a karmic debt and
mhm,
reincarnation, that it's
mhm,
your duty
mhm.
to learn lessons. Well, yeah, bitch
Right.
has learned some lessons this lifetime.
Yeah.
And I know I'm not perfect and I am like in the middle of metamorphosizing, but it's just like
Hmm.
you want to hope that in your afterlife that metamorphosis continues. And so
Right.
my magic mind, I wanted to like elevate and get a lot of like wisdom, you know?
Hmm. I can tell you kind of what spirits have shown me. So I do know that once they have gone through the light, so to speak, and they are on that other side, that they have that's where they fulfill that karmic debt if they don't want to take it on to their next life. Some people, I think, if you think of reincarnation, that they choose to take their karmic debt into the next life, and some try to atone for it before they move on to the next life.
Mm.
And so, from what people who I've spoken with who've passed on have shown to me, is that sometimes they have tasks that they have to do to kind of do an atonement. Sometimes they have to help other people as they're passing on. Sometimes they have to help people on this plane of existence. Um, I think I've also been shown that sometimes they're in this garden place learning to kind of be zen with themselves and forgive themselves for things that they did in this life.
It's like you need a timeout, bitch. You have
Hmm.
not learned.
Hmm.
Come to the
Right.
garden.
It's funny because when my best friend showed it to me, because she did show me a little version of the other side, but her version was like, it was like she was in jail.
Which is really sad. So just
Hmm.
to clarify, your best friend who has passed away, like you said, on the other side, he's
Yes,
shown
10 years
where she
now.
was
Yeah.
essentially, and it was
Mhm,
a prison.
mhm. Yeah, it
That's
was like a
something I
prison.
want to not be true because that scares me.
Right,
Why would
right.
she deserve a prison? She was probably a wonderful person. What the hell? Where the hell are they going to put me?
Right. So I think that maybe that was just her way of saying, look, I have these tasks. They let me go freely sometimes, but I have to earn the right to speak with those that I love. Um,
Damn.
yeah. And I was like, dang, but is it like that for everybody or just in specific situations? And I think that what the spirits have shown me is that it's different for everybody.
I feel like I've heard similar instances where, like, the night that someone passes before anyone gets that phone call, they're visited in their sleep by that person, and they say shit
Mhm.
like, I will not be able to see you again, but I want to let you know. Blah, 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 blah,
Right.
blah. And it's like, well, why
Right.
are they saying they can't see you again? What's keeping them? So, what are
Hmm.
these afterworld rules? Oh, that's what we need. We need the handbook for the recently deceased.
Yes. Come on, Beetlejuice. I'm just going to stick with, I think it's other dimensions. So I think, and maybe it's seamless. Maybe we go to that other dimension and forget this one all completely. Maybe some people are like that, and they will never come back. Um, I think it's just a matter of what you achieve in this life and what your goal was. Because if we do believe in reincarnation, then maybe you're choosing to just completely move on to a new life right away.
I need to look at that Nordic tree of life thing, like Valhalla and all these gates and the worlds and Odin and all
Ah,
that. Like they had it all broken down. So there's so many
right.
mythos on the afterlife, and I've honestly not researched many of them. I think I've only researched a little bit of Christianity, but as a kid, when I would read the Book of Revelations and things like that, I was getting freaked out when they were talking about like what was it, sheep and pigs just walking on their hind leg, and I was like, wait, is that what heaven is? Heaven is Animal Farm. I'm out. I'm scared. It was just really creepy, but I guess I like animals, so I shouldn't be so rude.
I'm like, why are you scared of a sheep walking on his hind legs? I thought you would find him attractive.
Exactly. Now that I say it out loud as an adult, I'm like, well, you were just kid brain. You couldn't handle that Bible stuff. The Bible is pretty scary.
Yeah.
And then other way of looking at it that I looked at was like Summerland and
Oh,
the
okay.
like Wiccan belief, and they are a little like just too hippy dippy flippant with it in the sense that it's just like The afterlife is a grassy place where we're all chill and happy. Like, it's kind
Right.
of like Garden of Eden, which
Yeah.
that is a lovely image, and I would love for that just to be it, for everybody. Of course, we're
Hmm.
just like having an awesome picnic Woodstock forever.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, those are the only two I've really ever looked at. So
Yeah,
I think that I'm missing a big piece of this puzzle and what other societies have come to the conclusion of.
absolutely. It's lovely. This episode I loved. I enjoyed doing all of the research. I enjoyed our talk here.
Yay! Well, I hope our listeners did too. I guess this would be a good place to wrap things up.
Sure. Yeah.
So, if you guys want to hear more from us, you can always find more on cousinscoven.home.blog. You can sign up for our newsletter, listen to all of season one's episodes. And if you want even more than that, you can sign up for our Patreon for the Cousins Coven after show. So, at least twice a month, we have 2 after shows a month, and some more bonus content is coming. So if you have any things you'd like to say to us, any questions, research topics, or ideas, you can email us at cousinscoven2@gmail.com.
And may you find happiness in your heart, love for yourself, and join each other. Blessings to all.